Judy Blume's Superfudge Chapter 5. Small ones are sweeter. Our house, that is, Millie and George's house, is so old that the bathtub stands on the floor on legs. And the hot and cold water doesn't come from the same faucet. So when you're washing your hands, you either freeze them or burn them. Mom says you're supposed to put the plug in the sink and mix the water in the basin. But that's a lot of trouble. At least we don't have chamber pots. The toilets here actually flush. Outside, the house is painted yellow and the shutters are white. The windows and doorways are slightly crooked. Dad says that's part of the charm of the house. I know better than to tell him what I think. Inside, the floors are wooden and they creak when you walk across them. Downstairs, there is a living room with a piano, a dining room with a table so big you have to shout to make yourself heard, a kitchen with pots and pans hanging all over the place, and a library where the walls are lined with books, arranged according to color. There is a brown leather section, a green leather section, a red leather section, and a tan leather section. Upstairs, there are 4 bedrooms in a row, and everywhere you look, there are fireplaces. There's one in every bedroom. There's one in the living room, another in the dining room, and still another in the library. There aren't any in the bathrooms or in the kitchen, though. My mother and father called the house fantastic, fabulous, unbelievable. I hear them talking to their friends on the phone, and those are the dumb words they use to describe this place. Our neighborhood is a lot like our house. Old. Every house on the block is a lot like this one, with a small front yard and a big backyard. In our backyard, we have George's rose garden and Millie's herb and vegetable garden. The first day we were here, Dad bought a stack of books with titles like Know Your Roses, Know Your Herbs, Organic Vegetables, and You. And my favorite, The Agony of Beetles in Your Garden. You didn't have to worry about the beetles in New York, did you, Dad? I said at dinner. That's enough, Peter, Dad said to me. That's enough, Peter, Fudge repeated. Cut that out, I told him. Cut that out, he said back to me. Fudge's new game is repeating everything I say. He's really driving me crazy this time. Pass the salt, please, I said to Mum. Pass the salt, please, he said, laughing. I pushed back my chair. I can't take it anymore. I mean it. Do something, will you? I begged my parents. But he was already at it. I can't take it anymore. Do something, will you? And he laughed so hard, he choked. Dad turned him upside down and whacked him on the back. I want you to stop doing that, Fudge, he said. Do you understand? I don't know why my parents are always asking him if he understands. He understands just fine. That has nothing to do with it. Fudge nodded. Because if you don't stop repeating everything that Peter says, I'm going to do more than just whack your back. Get it? I couldn't help smiling. Mum has this thing that's called a snuggle, or a snuggly, for carrying Tootsie. She hangs it around her neck, and Tootsie fits into it and rides right next to Mum's middle. It looks very comfortable. Sometimes Dad carries Tootsie in it too. Mum says they didn't have it when I was a baby. I missed out on a lot of these good things. Every night after supper, we walked into town, stopping at Baskin & Robbins for ice cream. One night, Mum asked me if I would like to wear the sling and carry Tootsie. No thanks, I said. I wouldn't be caught dead wearing a baby around my neck. Oh, Peter, you're so silly. Baskin Robbins is having a contest. They're looking for names for a new ice cream flavor. So far, I've suggested lemon lunatic, crazy chocolate, and miserable mint. After almost 2 weeks of hanging around the house, I actually met a kid my age. He lives across the street, but he was at scout camp when we first moved here. His name is Alex Santo, and he's going into 6th grade too. He's very small with hair that hangs into his eyes, and he's always wearing a t-shirt that says Princeton, Class of 91. By the time I met him, I was so lonely and bored, I wouldn't have cared if he had 3 heads as long as he was my age and he wanted to be friends. Alex came over one morning and said, "You want to go into business with me?" "What kind of business?" I asked. "Worms," he told me. "Worms?" I asked. "Yeah, worms," he said again. "Worms," Fudge said, jumping down the steps. "Wormy, wormy, worms." Alex looked over at him. "Don't mind him," I said. "He's just my little brother." "Oh," Alex said. "So, what do you say?" "Sure," I told him, having no idea what kind of worm business Alex was talking about. "When do I start?" about now? Alex said. Okay, what do I do? First, we dig them up, and then we sell them to Mrs. Mulder down the street. She pays 5 cents a worm. What does she do with them? I asked. She doesn't say. Some people think she uses them for fishing. Other people think she uses them in her garden. Personally, he stopped, scratched his head. Go on. Go on. I think she eats them, Alex said. I thought for a minute. Worm pie? Yeah, and worm stew, and worm juice, and worm soup, I said, getting warmed up, and worm bread. Oh, yeah, that's the best, Alex said. Nice, soft bread with little worms here and there. You can make a really tasty worm and cheese sandwich on it, I said. We were doubled over now, laughing our heads off. And worm ice cream, Fudge said, jumping up on top of us. Worm ice cream? And Alex and I said together. I decided that with Alex Santo in my class, Princeton might not be that bad. That afternoon, Alex and I went digging for worms. We rode our bike over to the lake. It's easy to ride in Princeton because they have bike paths on every street. Alex had a pail and a couple of shovels, and we got to work. Finding worms was no problem. An hour later, we rode back to my house. Mrs. Mulder likes her worms clean, Alex told me, turning on the hose. That figures if she uses them for cooking, I said. We left the pail of worms outside and went in for a drink. When we came out, Fudge was standing next to Tootsie's carriage, dangling a worm in front of her. Cut that out, I yelled, racing over to him. Why? She likes it, Fudge said. Watch. Alex and I looked in Tootsie's carriage. She laughed every time Fudge held up the worm. You're right, I said. She does seem to like it. Hey, Mom, look at this. What is it? Mom called from where she was weeding in Millie's organically grown vegetables. You've got to see this for yourself, I called back. She came over, wiping her hands on her jeans. Watch, Mummy, Fudge said, and he took the worm from behind his back and dangled it over Tootsie's carriage. She smiled and then gurgled, but my mum screamed, Get that thing out of here! Hurry up! Get rid of it! Now! It's just a worm, Mummy. Don't you like worms? No, I don't. I really don't like worms at all, and I never want you to show me another one. Do you understand? Fudge put the worm on his arm and let it crawl up to his shoulder. See? Isn't he cute? I'm going to call him Willie Worm, and he'll be my very own pet. I'm going to sleep with him, and he can eat next to me at the table. He can even take a bath with me. Fudge! Yes, Mummy? I told you I don't ever want to see that worm again, and you may not bring him into the house, and you may not hold him that close to Tootsie. Do you understand this time? You really don't like worms? Fudge said. That's right, Mum says. I really don't. Why not? Fudge asked. It's nothing I can explain. Mum went back to weeding the garden. Fudge followed her. Is your family always like that? Alex said. You haven't seen anything yet, I told her.